Krill the Magnificent, and yes, he insisted everyone use the Magnificent, stood at the center of the grand amphitheater on Station Kepler 442, all 8 tentacles spread wide in what his species considered a power pose. To everyone else, it looked like he was trying to hug the entire room at once, and failing. "Behold," he announced, his translator box cranking his voice up to maximum drama. 50 species. 50 deadly, untamable, utterly savage creatures from across the galaxy. And I, Krill the Magnificent, have bent them all to my will. The crowd of alien zoologists, xenobiologists, and various conference attendees who'd honestly just come for the free food politely clicked, buzzed, and vibrated their applause. Krill had won the Galactic Beastmaster Championship 3 years running, mostly because he'd spent an obscene amount of credits on a Neuralink headset that looked like someone had bedazzled an octopus and then convinced it to live on his head permanently. The secret, Krill continued, gesturing with 4 tentacles while the other 4 operated holographic displays, is understanding that dominance is encoded in electromagnetic frequencies, pheromone matrices, and 17-dimensional probability fields. Lesser species simply cannot comprehend the, "Is there going to be a demonstration or just talking?" someone yelled from the back. It sounded like a blordnoid, which tracked, because blordnoids were universally terrible at parties. Krill's skin flushed purple, which in his species meant either extreme annoyance or indigestion. Given that he'd eaten questionable station sushi earlier, it could have been both. Fine. Witness perfection. He turned to the first containment field, where a Rakthar slasher prowled 6 legs, crystalline claws, 3 rows of teeth, and a disposition that made angry hornets look cuddly. Krill's neural link sparked to life, and the creature immediately froze, then sat on its haunches, all 6 legs tucked beneath it. The crowd gave an impressed murmur. One attendee dropped their datapad. Krill moved down the line, his neural link humming as creature after creature responded to his commands. The Venusian mist terror condensed into a perfect sphere. The glacial worm from Titan 7 coiled itself into a neat spiral. Even the notoriously stubborn plasma eels formed a synchronized floating pattern that spelled out cryle in 3 languages. "You see?" Krill preened, his tentacles quivering with smug satisfaction. "Mastery is not about brute force. It is about technology, training, and superior intellect. These beasts recognize their better and submit accordingly." Dr. Phoenix, a wizened Quellan researcher with 4 eyes and exactly 0 patience for showboating, raised one of her hands. Yes. Very impressive. Tell me, how much did that neural link cost? 7 million credits? 8? 6.5. Krill sniffed. "I got a bulk discount." "Ah, so superiority can be purchased. How inspiring." Krill's skin went from purple to a blotchy orange. "Perhaps if your species had evolved past using pointy sticks to poke things, you'd understand the station's PA system crackled to life. Attention. Passenger Shuttle Delta 7 has been rerouted to Docking Bay 12 due to unexpected space traffic. We apologize for the inconvenience, and remind all passengers that the station is not responsible for existential confusion caused by accidentally attending conferences you didn't sign up for." Krill barely noticed the announcement. He was too busy basking in the attention, demonstrating how his prized void beast, a creature that technically existed in 5 dimensions simultaneously and had a taste for sentient beings, would fetch a holographic ball on command. What Krill didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that in Docking Bay 12, a very confused human in cargo shorts had just stepped off a shuttle and was squinting at a station directory, trying to figure out where everything had gone so terribly wrong. Jake Thompson had 3 goals when he woke up that morning. Get to the interstellar cruise terminal, enjoy 2 weeks of vacation, seeing some nebulas or whatever, and maybe try that fancy space ice cream everyone kept talking about. Somehow, he'd accomplished none of these, and had instead ended up at what appeared to be the galaxy's most uptight science convention. "This is definitely not the Holiday Star Cruise," he muttered, adjusting his fanny pack and checking his crumpled ticket for the 15th time. The ticket very clearly said Deck 7, Leisure Sector. The station directory in front of him very clearly said he was on Deck 7, Conference Sector. Close enough to be infuriating. A passing alien lavender skin, too many joints in its arms, wearing what looked like a lab coat made of metal mesh, stopped and stared at him. Then it pulled out some kind of scanning device and waved it in his direction. Hi?" Jake offered. "I'm looking for the Holiday Star Terminal. I think my shuttle driver messed up." The alien's translator crackled. "Fascinating. A human. An actual human. Unmodified genetic baseline. No cybernetics. Primitive textile coverings with excessive storage compartments. It leaned closer. Tell me, is it true your species achieved space travel before achieving basic planetary unity? I mean, yeah? We're working on the unity thing. It's a process. Jake tried to step around the alien. Do you know where? Remarkable. And those leg coverings with multiple pouches serve what tactical purpose? They hold stuff? Look, I really just need directions too. 3 more aliens had gathered now, all pointing various scanning devices at him. One was taking notes on a holographic pad. Another was muttering something about primitive tool user phenotypes into a recording device. Okay, this is getting weird, Jake said, backing away slowly. I'm just gonna find someone who looks like they work here. He speed-walked away from the growing crowd of curious scientists, turned a corner, and found himself facing a massive set of double doors with a sign that read, Galactic Beastmaster Exhibition. Authorized personnel only. Authorized personnel, Jake read aloud. Great. That's definitely not me. But next to those doors was another sign with an arrow. Facilities and refreshments. Now we're talking. He followed the arrow, which led him directly through a side entrance into the amphitheater. Because of course it did. Station designers apparently had the same spatial logic as whoever designed airport bathrooms, technically present but aggressively inconvenient. Jake found himself at the back of a massive room filled with aliens of every conceivable configuration, all watching some purple tentacle guy in the center pontificating about something involving charts and holograms. The tentacle guy had clearly never heard the phrase, brevity is the soul of wit. Jake spotted what might be a bathroom sign on the far side of the room. Maybe. It was either that or a warning about toxic waste. Honestly, 50-50 odds. He started making his way along the back wall, trying to be inconspicuous, which was challenging when you were apparently the only human in a room of several hundred aliens who kept turning to stare at you like you'd just walked into a board meeting wearing a dinosaur costume. In the center of the room, Krill the Magnificent was building to what he clearly considered a stirring conclusion about the nature of beast mastery and intellectual superiority. He didn't notice the human in cargo shorts walking past his carefully arranged display of deadly creatures. He really should have. Jake had made it about 15 feet along the perimeter when he passed the first containment field. Inside was something that looked like a tiger had a baby with a scorpion, and then that baby got really into CrossFit. 6 legs, barbed tail, fangs that could probably be seen from orbit. The kind of thing that definitely didn't want belly rubs. Except the moment Jake walked past, it sat. Not gradually. Not reluctantly. It went from prowling murder machine to sitting like a golden retriever who'd just been told he was a good boy. All 6 legs tucked under, tail wrapped around, eyes tracking Jake's movement with laser focus. Jake didn't notice. He was too busy trying to decode what he thought might be a bathroom symbol but could equally have been a warning about gravitational anomalies. The second containment field held something Dr. Phoenix's notes described as a crystalline reaper, a creature made of living silicon that fed on electromagnetic radiation and had the temperament of a hornet's nest that someone had kicked while on fire. It had no recognizable anatomy, no obvious skeletal structure, and definitely nothing that could be considered a sitting apparatus. It sat anyway. Somehow, the mass of crystalline spikes compressed itself into something approximating a seated position, which shouldn't have been physically possible but was apparently happening regardless. Several scientists dropped their datapads. One fainted, though that might have been unrelated. Good boy, Jake said absently as he passed, the way people do when they see literally any animal. He was reading signs, not paying attention to the creatures. The crystalline thing vibrated in a frequency that translated to pure joy. Krill, mid-sentence about neural link superiority, noticed his prized tiger-scorpion thing had broken position. His neural link sparked as he tried to reassert control. The creature ignored him entirely, watching Jake like he was made of treats and affection. What is... Krill started. Then the third creature sat. And the fourth. And the fifth. Jake walked past a Venusian mist terror that immediately condensed into a polite hovering sphere at ground level. A glacial worm that uncoiled itself and arranged its serpentine body into something resembling sitting, even though it had no legs. The plasma eels formed themselves into a seated question mark shape, somehow. Excuse me! Krill's voice went shrill, his translator box struggling to keep up with his rising panic. What are you doing to my specimens? Jake stopped, looked around, finally noticing that several hundred aliens were staring at him in complete silence. Me? I'm just looking for the bathroom, man. You guys have really confusing signs. The creatures. They're responding to you. How? What technology are you using? Jake glanced at the nearest containment field. where the tiger-scorpion thing was sitting so hard it was practically vibrating. Oh, I'm not doing anything? Maybe they're just friendly? Friendly. Krill's tentacles flailed in 17 directions. That is a Rakthar slasher. Yesterday it nearly consumed a handler who forgot to activate the shock collar. It has never, in 15 years of captivity, exhibited submissive behavior. Huh. Jake looked at the creature, which was now doing something that disturbingly resembled wagging a barbed tail. Well, he seems pretty chill now. Good boy. The Rakthar slasher made a sound like rocks in a blender trying to purr. Krill's Neuralink started sparking more aggressively, smoke rising from the edges. This is impossible. I have trained for decades. My Neuralink costs 6.5 million credits. I have mastered the electromagnetic frequencies, the pheromone matrices, the probability fields. Yeah, that's cool and all, Jake interrupted. But seriously, where's the bathroom? I've been holding it since the shuttle, and a creature in the back corner, something that looked like it was assembled from nightmares and bad decisions, with too many eyes and not enough regard for Euclidean geometry, sat down so hard the floor shook. Dr. Phoenix stood up slowly, all 4 eyes wide. Someone get a full sensor sweep of that human immediately. 3 dozen scanning devices activated simultaneously, all pointed at Jake, who was beginning to regret every decision that had led to this moment. Which, to be fair, was most of them. Okay, this is officially the weirdest conference I've ever accidentally attended, Jake said. And I once ended up at a convention for people who collect vintage toasters. Krill pointed 4 tentacles at Jake dramatically. You, human, you will explain this sorcery immediately. Dude, I don't even know what's happening. I just walked past some animals. Animals sit sometimes. That's like a thing they do? In the background, 50 creatures that had never sat before in their evolutionary history remained sitting, all of them tracking Jake's movements with expressions that ranged from adoring to obsessed, to please pet me, or I will experience sadness. Krill's neural link chose that moment to short out completely, sending up a small shower of sparks and the acrid smell of burning circuits. The creatures didn't even notice. They were too busy sitting for Jake. Krill ripped the smoking neural link off his head and threw it to the ground, where it bounced twice and made a sad electronic wheeze before dying completely. 6.5 million credits? Reduced to very expensive garbage in under 30 seconds. Unacceptable! His skin flashed through several colors that probably meant things in his language, but mostly just made him look like a malfunctioning traffic light. I demand an explanation! This primitive creature in ridiculous pants with too many pockets cannot possibly have outdone a decade of my training. Hey, cargo shorts are practical, Jake protested. And they're not pockets. They're organizational compartments. Dr. Phoenix had pushed her way to the front, scanning devices in 3 of her 4 hands. Fascinating. No abnormal pheromone output. No psychic signature. No hidden technology whatsoever. Genetic baseline matches the human standard profile exactly. She looked up at Jake, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. You're completely, almost aggressively average for your species. Thanks, I think. So how? Krill demanded, advancing on Jake with all 8 tentacles gesticulating wildly. Are you controlling them? I'm not! They're just sitting there! Exactly. They never just sit. The Rakthar slasher has 17 documented kills. The crystalline reaper dissolved an entire research team. These are not sitting creatures. Jake glanced at the Rakthar slasher, which was sitting so attentively it looked like it was waiting for a treat. I mean, he looks pretty good at sitting to me. The creature's tail wagged harder. A low rumbling sound emanated from its chest that was definitely not supposed to be there anatomically, but was definitely happening anyway. Bring out specimen Omega, Krill commanded. If this human can handle Omega, then we'll know if this is genuine or some kind of mass hallucination brought on by bad station recycled air. Several assistants looked at each other nervously. One of them, a small jellyfish-looking thing in a hover tank, spoke up timidly. Sir, specimen Omega is classified as a Category 9 existential threat. Station regulations require. Bring out Omega. 5 minutes later, they'd cleared the center of the amphitheater and activated a reinforced containment field that hummed with enough energy to power a small moon. Inside materialized something that Jake's brain tried very hard not to process. It was mostly shadow, partly tentacles, somewhat teeth, and definitely existing in more dimensions than Jake had awareness of. Parts of it kept disappearing and reappearing, like a video buffering in real time. That's a void beast, Doctor, Phoenix explained, her voice carrying the tone of someone who'd accepted that today was going to be weird and had made peace with it. It exists partially in another dimension, completely untrainable. It took Krill 8 years just to get it to stop trying to eat everything in its general vicinity. It looks like a nightmare had a baby with static from an old TV, Jake observed. That's remarkably accurate, Dr. Phoenix agreed. Krill gestured dramatically at the containment field. This creature has never responded to any form of domestication attempt. If your supposed gift works on Omega, then perhaps, and I stress perhaps, I will acknowledge that something unusual is occurring. I really just want to find the bathroom, Jake said. After the test, Jake sighed, approached the containment field, and looked at the void beast, which looked back at him with too many eyes, in places eyes shouldn't be. Hey there, buddy. The void beast sat. Well, it did something that was conceptually sitting, even though it required partially rotating through dimensions Jake couldn't perceive and probably violated several laws of physics. The parts of it that existed in normal space arranged themselves into a posture that screamed, I am sitting very well. Please acknowledge my good behavior. Then it purred. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, a deep thrumming that made everyone's teeth vibrate and several recording devices explode. It was the sound of cosmic horror experiencing contentment. Jake, operating purely on instinct and 20 years of volunteering at the Columbus Animal Shelter, reached through the containment field, which definitely should have shocked him but apparently decided not to, and scratched behind where he assumed the void beast's ears were. The void beast leaned into his hand and made a noise that translated across dimensional barriers as pure, unfiltered bliss. Good boy, Jake said. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Half the audience fainted. The other half started frantically taking notes. Krill just stood there, all 8 tentacles hanging limply, his skin color cycling through what was definitely the alien equivalent of a complete mental breakdown. This is fine, he said quietly. Everything is fine. I've just wasted my entire adult life studying something that a human in cargo shorts accomplished by saying, good boy. This is totally fine. Dr. Phoenix approached Jake cautiously. Young man, I think you need to understand something. What you just did should be impossible. That creature has been studied by the finest xenobiologists in the galaxy. You just made it purr. It seemed lonely, Jake said, still scratching the void beast, which had now rotated more of itself into normal space just to maximize petting contact. Do you guys have any treats? He looks like he'd appreciate treats. In the background, Krill sat down heavily, all the fight gone out of him, looking like a deflated balloon with too many arms. Dr. Phoenix called an emergency session right there in the amphitheater, because apparently when you accidentally break everything science thought it knew about animal behavior, you don't get to leave until someone figures out why. Jake still hadn't found the bathroom. Dozens of xenobiologists, exozoologists, and various other scientists with too many syllables in their job titles crowded around, scanning Jake from every conceivable angle while he stood there wondering if his vacation insurance covered being poked by aliens at a conference you didn't sign up for. Nothing, announced a Thrixian researcher, waving a device that looked like a fork had achieved sentience. No telepathic abilities. No empathic resonance fields. No quantum entanglement signatures. He's just a human. A deeply average human, added another scientist. Okay, I'm right here, Jake said. You guys know I can hear you, right? Dr. Phoenix had been silent for 10 minutes, all 4 eyes closed in concentration, which Jake had learned meant she was either deep in thought or had fallen asleep standing up. Finally, she opened her eyes and spoke in the tone of someone about to deliver very bad news. I have a theory, and you're all going to hate it. The crowd leaned in. Humans aren't using technology. They're not using biology in any traditional sense. They've done something far more insidious. She paused for dramatic effect, which Jake appreciated because at least someone here understood pacing. They've weaponized friendship. Silence. I'm sorry, what? Krill croaked from his corner of defeat. Dr. Phoenix pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's timeline. Look at human history. 30,000 years ago, they encountered wolves, apex predators, dangerous pack hunters. What did humans do? Did they develop advanced technology to control them? No. They befriended them, fed them scraps, gave them names, made them part of the family. And now wolves are dogs, and dogs would literally die for humans. That's nice? Jake offered. That's terrifying, Dr. Phoenix corrected, because they didn't stop there. Cats? Befriended. Horses? Befriended. Elephants? Birds? Fish? Lizards? Humans have spent their entire evolutionary history looking at other species and thinking, I'm gonna make that love me. They domesticated animals that could kill them. They tried to domesticate bears. For crying out loud. To be fair, that one didn't really work out, Jake admitted. But you tried. That's the point. Your species looks at dangerous creatures, and your first instinct isn't fear or dominance, it's, "Can I pet it?" Doctor. Phoenix's voice was rising now, her 4 eyes wild with the fervor of scientific breakthrough. You've spent tens of thousands of years socially engineering yourselves into an apex friendship species. You emit some kind of energy. Some je ne sais quoi that transcends biology and technology and apparently dimensional barriers that says, "I'm going to give you snacks and belly rubs and tell you you're a good boy." A Quellan scientist raised one hand tentatively. But that's not how interspecies dynamics work. You need shared evolutionary history, compatible pheromone systems, mutual environmental pressures. Except humans don't care about any of that. Dr. Phoenix cut him off. They walked up to wolves and said, "You're my friend now. We're getting matching sweaters." They saw cats obligate carnivores with zero evolutionary pressure to cooperate with other species and said, "That's my baby." There's no logic to it. It's pure, concentrated, weaponized affection. Jake raised his hand. "Can I say something?" "No," said several scientists simultaneously. Doctor. Phoenix continued pacing, her display now showing images of humans with various Earth animals. Every other species in the galaxy uses dominance, control, or symbiotic necessity. We Quellans use neural programming. The Thrixians use pheromone manipulation. Krill used expensive technology. But humans? She turned to face Jake. Humans use something we can't quantify, can't measure, and can't replicate. Genuine, unconditional, absolutely unhinged interspecies affection. You people will pack bond with anything. Roomba vacuum cleaners, rocks, fictional characters. There are documented cases of humans forming emotional attachments to their own kitchen appliances. I mean, my toaster has been with me for 8 years, Jake said defensively. We've been through a lot together. Exactly. And that's why every creature in this room sat for you. Because somewhere in your evolutionary wiring, you're broadcasting "I will love you and feed you and tell you you're special" on a frequency that apparently works across species, planets, and dimensions. Doctor. Phoenix was gesticulating with all 4 hands now. You're not beast masters. You're beast friends. And that's so much worse. Krill made a sound like a deflating tire. So what you're telling me is that my decade of study, my millions of credits and equipment, my entire professional identity is obsolete, because humans just really like animals? Yes. And there's no counter to this? No way to replicate it artificially? Well, you could try genuinely caring about the creatures instead of dominating them. But, absolutely not, Krill said immediately. That sounds exhausting and emotionally vulnerable. Jake finally spotted a bathroom sign behind the crowd and started edging toward it. So are we done here? Because I've really gotta... Wait. Krill stood up suddenly, all 8 tentacles regaining some of their previous swagger. If this human is so naturally gifted, then I challenge him to an official Beastmaster competition. Tomorrow, right here. We'll see if his friendship power holds up under formal examination. I really don't think... Jake started. Afraid you'll lose, Krill sneered. No, I'm afraid I'll miss my cruise and my deposit is non-refundable. But the crowd was already buzzing with excitement. And Dr. Phoenix was nodding thoughtfully. Actually, this could provide valuable data. What do you say, Jake? Help us understand your species' bizarre superpower. Jake looked at the void beast, still sitting patiently in its containment field, looking at him with something that might have been hope across multiple dimensions. He sighed. Fine. But someone please tell me where the bathroom is first. The next day, the amphitheater was packed to capacity. Word had spread across the entire station that a human in cargo shorts was about to compete against Krill the Magnificent in an official Beastmaster competition, and apparently the entire galaxy had a serious case of, "I gotta see this." Jake arrived wearing the same cargo shorts, same fanny pack, and a t-shirt that said, Columbus Animal Shelter, where every day is adoption day. He was holding a coffee that he'd discovered was made from some kind of bean that grew on a moon where it rained sideways. It tasted like battery acid and regret. But it had caffeine, so he was coping. Krill stood on the opposite side of the arena wearing what could only be described as formal battle tentacle wraps and a brand new Neuralink headset that probably cost more than Jake's annual salary. He'd spent all night practicing with backup equipment and muttering about redemption arcs. A referee, some kind of floating geometric shape that communicated through color changes, explained the rules. Each competitor will be presented with 10 creatures of increasing difficulty. The creature must perform 3 commands. Sit, stay, and approach. Scoring is based on speed of compliance and enthusiasm of response. Use of technology is permitted. This is gonna be a massacre, Krill muttered confidently, cracking his tentacles like knuckles. Yeah, I really should have read the waiver more carefully, Jake agreed, but for completely different reasons. The first creature was released. A marsh stalker from Proxima 6. All teeth and attitude and poisonous spines. It had the temperament of a wet cat that had just been forced to take a bath. Krill activated his neural link. Waves of electromagnetic energy pulsing outward. The marsh stalker hesitated, twitched, then slowly sat down after about 15 seconds. It stayed for 10 seconds when commanded, then approached with visible reluctance, like a teenager being asked to do chores. The crowd gave polite applause. The geometric referee flashed colors that probably meant something like, adequate. Jake's turn. He looked at the marsh stalker, which was eyeing him with the kind of suspicion animals reserve for the vet's office. Hey buddy, Jake said, taking a sip of his terrible coffee. Wanna sit? The marsh stalker sat immediately, tail wagging, poison spines laying flat in a non-threatening display. Stay. Jake held up one hand. The creature stayed, practically vibrating with the effort of being good. Come here. The marsh stalker bounded over like Jake had just come home after a year-long deployment, making happy chirping sounds that its species wasn't supposed to be capable of producing. The crowd went absolutely feral. Cheering, hollering, various alien noises of excitement that Jake's translator couldn't quite process. And that's how it went. Creature after creature. Krill would deploy his expensive technology to achieve grudging compliance, while Jake would just talk to them like they were regular animals at the shelter back home, and they'd respond like he'd personally rescued them from a burning building. By the 8th creature, a silicon shrieker that existed partially as living glass and fed on radio waves, Krill's neural link was smoking again, and his skin had gone a color that Dr. Phoenix quietly noted meant existential crisis. The final creature was, of course, the Void Beast. Specimen Omega. The thing that shouldn't be tameable. Krill went first, deploying every trick he'd learned, every frequency his neural link could produce. The Void Beast regarded him with the kind of disdain that transcended dimensional barriers. It did eventually sit, but in a way that made it clear this was a choice motivated by boredom, not obedience. Then Jake stepped up, still holding his terrible coffee, looking slightly tired and very ready for this whole thing to be over. Hey there, big guy. Remember me? The Void Beast sat so fast it created a small, localized distortion in space-time. Then it approached without being asked, nuzzled against Jake's leg across multiple dimensions simultaneously, and made that reality-vibrating purring sound. Jake scratched behind its interdimensional ears. Good boy. Yes, you are. Best eldritch horror in the whole station. The geometric referee flashed colors that definitely meant, we have a winner. The crowd erupted. Krill collapsed into a heap of defeated tentacles. Dr. Phoenix was frantically taking notes while looking absolutely vindicated. They presented Jake with a ceremonial sash that said Galactic Beastmaster Champion in 17 languages, and a trophy that was either very beautiful or mildly haunted honestly. 50-50 odds. Plus, a lifetime supply of exotic creature care supplies from every major xenozoology supplier in the known galaxy. Jake looked at the mountain of supplies being wheeled out. Oh, cool. The shelter back home can definitely use this stuff. Do you guys validate parking? Because I've been here 2 days, and station parking prices are actually insane. The crowd went silent. Parking? Krill raised his head weakly. You're worried about parking? You just revolutionized our entire understanding of interspecies dynamics and you're worried about parking? I mean, it's like 40 credits an hour. That adds up. Dr. Phoenix stepped forward. Jake, do you understand what you've done? You've proven that humans possess a natural ability that we've been trying to replicate artificially for centuries. You're a breakthrough. You're a phenomenon. You're late for my cruise, Jake finished. But hey, this was fun. Weird, but fun. Thanks for the trophy. He started to leave. Trophy under one arm. Sash draped over his shoulder, still holding his terrible coffee. Behind him, all 50 creatures turned to watch him go. Sitting. Waiting. Several of them made sad sounds. The Void Beast pressed against its containment field, portions of it trying to follow Jake across dimensional barriers. He's leaving, one scientist whispered. They look heartbroken, another added. The Rakthar Slasher, the 6-legged murder machine that had 17 documented kills, let out a whimper that sounded exactly like a puppy that had just been told its favorite human was going on vacation without him. Jake paused at the door, looked back at the creatures. then at Krill. Hey man, piece of advice? Maybe try just being nice to them. They're not specimens or challenges. They're just animals. Scared, confused, far from home. Same as anybody. He shrugged. Works pretty well back on Earth anyway. Then he left, presumably to finally find his cruise terminal and enjoy his vacation. Behind him, Krill sat in silence, surrounded by 50 creatures who were all still staring at the door. One of them, the crystalline reaper, was making a sound that its species had no biological mechanism to produce, but was unmistakably crying. Dr. Phoenix put a hand on Krill's shoulder. You know, he might have a point about the being nice thing. Absolutely not, Krill said, but his voice lacked conviction. That would require admitting I've been doing this wrong for a decade. You have been doing it wrong for a decade. Krill looked at his burned-out neural link, then at the creatures, then at the door where Jake had disappeared. Humans, he muttered, are a galactic-level existential threat to the entire concept of animal control. Yes, Dr. Phoenix agreed cheerfully. And honestly, I think that's beautiful. Somewhere in the station, Jake finally found his cruise terminal, boarded the right ship this time, and settled in with his haunted trophy and his ceremonial sash, ready for 2 weeks of looking at nebulas. He never did find out that back on Station Kepler 442, Krill had quietly started researching positive reinforcement training and interspecies emotional bonding, but the Void Beast knew. Across dimensions and vast distances of space, it knew. And it was still sitting, still being good, still waiting for Jake to come back and tell him he was a good boy one more time.